The Florida Gators have arguably their most important target visiting campus this weekend.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free by visiting the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work for New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators, we're talking about Felix Ojo. Like I said, Florida might have arguably their most important target visiting campus this weekend. I feel like, and I mean in the 2026 class, except maybe Will Griffin just because quarterback, but I feel like Felix Ojo needs to be not a priority, the priority for the Florida Gators. He's supposed to visit campus this weekend. On3 has him as the 11th overall player, 5th offensive tackle. 24/7 has him as the 5th overall player, 1st offensive tackle. ESPN, 20th overall player, 4th offensive tackle. And Rivals has him as the 11th overall player, 3rd offensive tackle. And clearly everybody has him as a top 5 offensive tackle. Everyone has him as top 4, except for On3, who has 5 offensive tackles in the top 11. Like at that point, I can't even be mad at it, right? Look, you got him 5th offensive tackle, sure, but still 11th overall player. It's just how things are shaping up right now. He's gonna be on campus this weekend, and he has elite size. I mean, skill, athletic ability looks like it's all there. Looks like he has a ton of room to grow, but not in a bad way. By a ton of room to grow, I don't mean like, oh yeah, he's super raw, just needs a ton of development. He kind of needs a ton of development in the sense that every high school player needs a ton of development. But one of my favorite things about Felix Ojo is that he's fared very well against Texas competition. And I've said this a million times at this point, that I think Florida and Texas are 2 of, if not the 2 best places to get college football players. Just 2 of the best states in terms of where they come out of. And I know, we've seen more Georgia and Alabama, and a lot of that's just because of how much those high school coaches get paid compared to Florida, which, by the way, Florida, the state of Florida, pay your high school coaches more. Thanks. Appreciate it. But I still think that just naturally people who are from Florida or from Texas, they tend to be really freaking good football players because that stuff's like in your blood. All right. And so I do think that Florida is better for the quicker, faster guys. And I don't want to just say skill position players because you get some edge rushers there that are just insanely quick and they're just big dudes. They're playing on the edge. And you see that with a whole bunch of different positions at Florida. So I don't feel like it's just, oh yeah, Florida's for the skill guys. I feel like Florida has that deserved reputation of quicker, faster guys go there. I will say I think Texas might be the most balanced state throughout just all positions on a football field. Texas might be the most balanced state. And I do think that Texas has a great track record, or maybe not great track record, because I'm sure there's a lot of busts out there. But Texas has introduced a ton of talented edge rushers and talented defensive tackles and just defensive linemen there. And I love to hear that with, Felix Ojo has done very well against them, because what that tells me is that he's already playing damn good competition and he's beating them. Like, that's what that tells me, that he's already playing fantastic competition and he's better than them. And the fact that you can have that of just, yeah, he's playing the best guys. Oh, and he's the best of them, and he's faring very well, and he's shutting down some of these top ranked edge rushers, some of these well sought after edge rushers. Like, I love hearing that. I do. I think that, we're talking about a guy that has the NFL potential here. And I think that one of the reasons this is such a huge potential addition is just if you can land him, like that answers the biggest question for Rob Sale, right? I don't think that Rob Sale is a bad developer of talent. That's always been a thing, and it's always been, hey, like, you can bank on the fact that you're a good enough coach and a good enough talent developer to go get these raw athletes and develop them, and that's fine. But it would be nice to add 5-star offensive linemen and develop that. That's what Felix Ojo could be. That's what Felix Ojo is, and what he can be is great. So you bring him in. Rob Sale gets to answer he at least gets to push off the recruiting question for a while, right? Jonathan DeCoster has been the primary recruiter here. Jonathan DeCoster is the one that's pushing for him, and Jonathan DeCoster is someone that I think is a fantastic developer. I think he's very overlooked early on in his career, but everybody I've spoken to, everything I've heard has been that he just does a hell of a job being who he is and coaching. But I will say, with all that said, I'm still not going to say that Felix Ojo would be a day one starter just off principle. And I bring up the just off principle part to let you know that that's how good I think this kid's going to be. Okay. And look, there's Florida, there's Michigan, there's Ohio State, there's Oklahoma, there's Texas, of course, is a major player in this recruiter. All of them. I don't care where he goes. I think he's a damn good football player. Okay. If I'm Florida, I'm making him priority number one, that I need to add him to my commit list, because kid's going to be good. I feel confident saying that. I think he's going to be pretty damn good. I know he's expected to commit before the season, but for this instance and every instance, I mean, probably at this point, it seems like it's going to be forever in recruiting. I'll wait until they sign before I go, didn't get him. How often have we seen Florida not get the guy initially just to eventually wind up there? So I will give them that grace, and I will say that I don't care if he commits elsewhere right now, if he commits elsewhere before the season. I don't care if he commits elsewhere on November 20th. As long as early signing day comes around and he signs, or until early signing day comes around and he doesn't sign with Florida, he signs with someone else, then I'll chalk it up as a loss. But until then, he's got to be your priority number one. I don't care if he goes, hey, coach, stop calling me. You keep calling. Go get him. Win games. Go get him. I think he's a tremendous football player. I think he needs to be priority number one in this 2026 recruiting class remaining. And there's a hell of a lot of talent coming on campus for the Florida Gators this weekend. We'll talk about some more of those names on Locked On Gators. The days are getting longer, the weather's warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all and at prices that fit your budget. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free. Everything in the podcast and on YouTube. And Florida has two more offensive visitors that, at the time of recording this very late on Wednesday night, has two more offensive visitors that are allegedly, I'll say, reportedly confirmed to be on campus this weekend. First is wide receiver Calvin Russell. Okay. And Calvin Russell is a name that a lot of people who follow recruiting know, whether it's Florida or not, but a lot of people who follow recruiting know. Calvin Russell, 6'6", 190. On 3 is listed as the 108th player overall and the 12th wide receiver there. So Calvin Russell, 108th overall, 12th wide receiver. On 24/7, he's the 21st overall player, which obviously pretty big jump there. But 21st overall player, third receiver. ESPN, 26th overall player, fourth receiver. Rivals, 89th player, 89th player, 13th receiver. And in the state of Florida, he is 11th on 3, second on 24/7, fifth on ESPN, and 11th on Rivals as well. And this is a bit of a late-ish push. We're about 2 months from the time he expects to commit, or he's planning on committing. He's got his commitment date set right now for July 5th. That's going to be Florida, Miami, Oregon, LSU, Florida State, and Syracuse as the teams, which an interesting group. Some of those schools like Florida, Oregon, LSU have done a good job of getting receivers to the NFL in recent years. Miami will add their name to the list. Miami has, of course, last year, Cam Ward. Well, actually, I'll include Miami and Syracuse because it's the same point I was going to make for Syracuse, except Miami had Cam Ward. Syracuse had Kyle McCord. But Miami and Syracuse were both very air raidy last year. Just ton of getting a receiver the ball in open space and throwing the ball a lot. So it's like, oh yeah, even if I'm not like in any offense, if I'm getting the ball 20% of the time, fine in terms of target share. But if I'm deciding between an offense that's going to throw the ball 20 times or 45, I get the ball more in the one that throws the ball 45 times. So yeah, makes sense that a receiver would want to go there. Florida State, in-state. I don't know what to tell you about. Outside of Keon Coleman, not a ton of receiver to the NFL pipeline there. And I know Florida hasn't had a ton of guys go there recently and work out like that, but they've consistently gotten guys there, and I do think that matters a lot. And had a 4th-round pick this year. Calvin Russell used to be a basketball guy as well. And I don't know this for certain, but I feel like that would be a hindrance to Florida's recruiting him. But it seems to be that he's mostly shifting his attention toward football. The anti-CJ Ingram, Florida was recruiting CJ Ingram for football and basketball. And it was like, oh, well, is he going to play both? How is that going to work? And eventually he decided, hey, basketball's it for me, and Calvin Russell's kind of the opposite, where it's like, hey, both football's kind of it for me is now the expectation there. So Calvin Russell also going to be on campus, and will, again, hopefully, eventually be a Florida Gator. Running back Carson Baker is also going to be on campus. Carson Baker, 6'1", 195 pounds. On 3, he's a 136th overall player. 10th running back, 15th player in the state of Georgia. On 24/7, unranked nationally, 21st running back, 34th player in the state of Georgia. On ESPN, 168th overall, 17th running back and 20th player in the state of Georgia. And on Rivals, 194th nationally, 8th running back, highest, despite being his lowest of the actual spots where he has a spot, highest ranked running back there, and 29th player in the state of Georgia. 24/7, the only place that has him not as a 4-star running back here. And on the on-3 composite, he's 223rd overall. But Carson Baker is someone that has it's an interesting situation with Carson Baker, because Carson Baker has openly said Florida is behind Ohio State, Clemson, South Carolina, and Florida State. Which, sure, I guess, but I do think that if you're Florida, if there's one spot where you can really make up a lot of ground on the offensive side of the ball in recruiting, it's probably running back, right? Like I think that, you look at receivers and you see some of the offense, and there's going to be receivers that go, not for me. You look at quarterbacks, and there's going to be quarterbacks that go, that offense, not for me. And again, this is all talking about this in May. You're going to need, obviously, to prove some things wrong on the field during the season, and that's fine. But you look at all that, and you're going to see guys go, not for me. Offensive line, just this thought popped into my head real quick. The 2027 class for Florida's offensive line, assuming that the coaching staff remains intact on that side of the ball, that 2027 class could be freaking huge. I almost hard F-bombed it. Could be freaking huge. If you've got Jake Slaughter, Austin Barber, Damian George will be draft eligible there, probably going at some point. Like you can have quite a few guys drafted, right? Najee Harris, I'm not going to mark down. Rod Kearney, I'm not going to mark down. But you're probably going to have at least 2 offensive linemen drafted. One could be a pretty early one. And so 2027 should be huge for the offensive line. If it's not, yikes. But with running back in this offense, I feel like it's very easy to sell, hey, we can get guys a lot of touches. You're going to get your carries. We're going to throw the ball to you out of the backfield. Young guys, we're willing to play them early on. We have shown that we're willing to play running backs, especially freshman running backs, right away. That's never been a flaw of ours in Billy Napier's tenure. You had Etienne as a true freshman in 2022. Trayon Webb didn't really get a ton of carries in 23, but I think that was more indicative of Montrell, Etienne, and then Trayon Webb just not really showing enough to earn that as a true freshman. And then last year you had Jaden Baugh get a ton of carries and be super productive. So if there's any spot that you can eat up a lot of ground recruiting-wise if you're Florida on offense, it's probably running back. And Carson Baker's a guy that we talked about this, I think it might have been the Monday show that we talked about it, where I think Florida needs to add at least a running back or 2, just because, your Jacoby Jackson's going to be gone for this year. Jaden Baugh is going to be draft eligible after next year, as is Katie Daniels. You got 2 true freshmen that just got there. Or sorry, 3 true freshmen that just got there because Byron Lewis has now joined the team, or he's now on campus. So you got the 3 true freshman running backs there. Trayon Webb's still there. At a certain point, odds are at least one of those running backs is going to hit the portal. And so that's why I'm like, you got to bring in 1 or 2 this year because you're going to have guys hit the portal. Got to replace that with high school talent there. We are going to flip to the defensive side of the ball on Locked On Gators. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, wherever it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And on the defensive side of the ball, the Florida Gators have 4 visits set up for this weekend that we're going to talk about. First is cornerback Justice Fitzpatrick. I don't know what happened, man. I can't explain it to you. But Justice Fitzpatrick, 35th player nationally on 3, 5th corner, 5th player in the state of Florida, 24/7, 88th player nationally, 9th corner, 10th player in the state of Florida. ESPN, 42nd nationally, 4th corner, 8th player in the state of Florida. Rivals, 113th overall, 6th corner, 15th player in the state of Florida. And listed as 6 feet, 185 pounds. This one's going to be a battle between Florida, Miami, Texas, Ohio State, and Georgia. It ain't going to be pretty. It ain't going to be easy. I especially think that when you look at Texas and Georgia, those are going to be the 2 hardest sells. As in, those are going to be the 2 hardest teams to convince him to stay away from. Miami, Ohio State. Like, Ohio State has gotten a lot of safeties out there lately. They've got a lot of players at a lot of positions, but they haven't gotten a lot of successful NFL corners out there often. So I do think that one's tough. Miami hasn't either, really. Although OJ Frederick is going to be a good selling point, especially if he takes another step. Florida hasn't got a lot of successful corners in the league lately, but they're always going to be DBU. So there's that. I've been told that Justice Fitzpatrick is a huge priority for the Florida Gators for this 2026 class. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be ugly, and it's going to be just tough to get. But hey, good things are worth fighting for, right? Also at corner, you got Chauncey Kennan. On3 has him as the 41st overall player and the 6th corner. So a bit of a dip, but not a big dip there at all. Where there's a huge jump is 24/7, where Chauncey Kennan is listed as the 27th player in the country, a 5-star, 2nd corner in the country. Big comparison there. Justice Fitzpatrick on 24/7, 88th player, 9th corner. So huge jump there. They're in the same range on ESPN. Chauncey Kennan's 49th overall, 5th corner, 12th player in the state of Florida. Forgot if I mentioned where he ranked in Florida before, but On3 has him as the 6th player in the state, and 24/7 has him as the 4th player in the state. And then, of course, like I just mentioned, 49th, 5th, 12th for ESPN. Similar spot there. So On3, ESPN have Justice Fitzpatrick and Chauncey Kennan in similar spots. 24/7 has Chauncey Kennan way ahead of Justice Fitzpatrick. And Rivals has Justice Fitzpatrick way ahead of Chauncey Kennan because Justice Fitzpatrick on Rivals, 113th player overall, 6th corner. Rivals has Chauncey Kennan as 123 spots behind, 236th player nationally, 18th corner, 35th player in the state of Florida. Obviously, this is just an interesting one, and if those spots hold, that's going to be an ultimate, like, you know, not ultimate who knows ball, but like ultimate bragging rights there of if you're right or not. And I say not, you know, to indicate who knows ball because part of this is luck, right? Chauncey Kennan was at the season opener last year for the Florida Gators against Miami, which, yep, brutal. But this is also one of Chauncey Kennan's first times back on campus since then. Florida State, Georgia, Miami, LSU, Auburn. It's basically a very similar bunch that's recruiting Justice Fitzpatrick and Chauncey Kennan. There's an opportunity for them to go to the same place together, be true freshman contributors, you know, become long-term developers, players, and all that stuff, and it could be fun. Then there's Edge, Luke. I don't know if it's pronounced Waffle or Wafle because there's one F in it. I'm going to say Waffle, but 6'6", 245-pound Edge. 14th player overall on 3, 4th Edge, 1st player in his state. We'll talk about that in a second. 24/7 has him as the 110th player overall, 14th Edge, 1st player in his state. ESPN has him as the 104th overall player, 13th Edge, 1st player in his state. Rivals has him as the 86th overall player, 7th Edge, 1st player in his state. And one of the reasons that I have not said the name of his state yet is because I want to just throw something out there real quick before I say it. Never trust someone from New Jersey. I'm just saying. I'm not being harsh. I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. Can't trust New Jerseyans. Just can't do it. But Luke Wafle is indeed the number 1 player in the state of New Jersey. Tremendous football player. Big dude. Just, I mean, you look at his frame too, and he's just rocked up completely. But this is as national a battle as it gets. All right, this is as national a battle as we get. We're talking the Northeast. You got Penn State going for him, of course. The Pacific West, you got USC going for him. The Center South, you got Texas going for him. I mean, the Midwest has Ohio State in there. I don't know if you consider Ohio State Midwest. I think that's like the border where people often debate and argue about it. You got Tennessee in there. You got the Southeast Florida. Like you got everybody. You got Clemson. This is as national a battle as it gets. And this is another time where you can look at the schools who's recruiting him and you're like, all right, well, he's a good player. Don't care about anything else. Like, don't care about how many people feel about anything. You got a guy that's on the edge getting recruited by Florida, Clemson, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas. Those schools, they're not taking crappy edge rushers, right? They're taking guys who can come in and be ball players before they become NFL players. And so Luke Wafle is someone that I do hope Florida really pursues. And I'll just say, weather's really nice in Florida, especially compared to Jersey. That's it. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say about it. And there is one more player to talk about that is visiting campus this weekend, and that is I think it's Jameer Perez. I just don't know if it's like the ha sound, but I think it's Jameer Perez. Unranked nationally on On3, unranked nationally on 24/7, unranked nationally on ESPN, unranked nationally on Rivals, 67th D lineman on On3, 75th D lineman on 24/7, unranked positionally on ESPN, 28th D lineman on Rivals. And this is a multi-layered thing. David Reese, former Florida Gators linebacker that's now on the coaching staff, has a relationship with Jameer Perez. And so that's how that came about, because David Reese was in contact with Jameer Perez when he was at, I think it was Eastern Michigan is where he was. And so that's how that relationship started. I think Jameer Perez is going to at least initially commit to Ohio State. Okay. Which, again, one of those things where it's like, well, if they want you, probably pretty well. But we'll see how long that sticks. Partially because, and I forgot if I said defensive lineman, but defensive line coach for Ohio State, Larry Johnson, every year there's the rumor of this might be his last year. I feel like I'm going to lean into it, and I'm going to say, even if he commits to Ohio State, we'll see how long that sticks. Not even because Larry Johnson might retire, but because every year there's the rumor that Larry Johnson might retire, which means that, hey, at some point it's going to happen. And maybe you don't want to be there when it does. Maybe you want to be entrenched somewhere else. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free. We listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work for New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.